Session, we're going to focus on measuring meaning, creating value within social media. So we all know there's a lot of dollar and energy going into social media, and we've all seen some examples of some great winners and maybe some that didn't turn out as well as we hoped. So we're going to talk about what it means to really understand the value of different social media initiatives. My name is Jason Burby. I'm the Chief Analytics and Optimization Officer for Zoz. We're an interactive agency based in Seattle, do a lot with Microsoft as well as Ford, Nokia, Sony, and a few others. Also co-author of Actionable Analytics that we're going to have a few handouts for people, a few copies for the brave people that ask questions at the end. So we're talking about measurement and social media. Everyone knows the intelligence is always in the measurement. Making friends is easy, getting people to recommend your products, all of that stuff is easy. So we spoke together before with kind of this measurement media background, and someone came up after we saw him kind of chuckling in the front. And they came up after the presentation. They showed us their device, and they said, look, the guy didn't speak very good English. He was pointing at us and pointing down here. And this is what he brought up. So apparently we have a thick resemblance to these guys. And again, I will point out, it's easy to tell the intelligent one in that picture as well. But as we go ahead and get into it, Ryan, do you want to do your background quickly?
Sure. My name is Ryan Turner. I work with Jason at Zoz. I lead the social media practice at Zoz. I've been involved in social media since it was called Online Community, which was a while ago in social media terms, but not that long ago, really overall. So I blog at websocialarchitecture.com, and you can find me there and other places online. And I wanted to tell a story as we start out about my grandmother, who I talked with yesterday, because it was her 90th birthday on St. Patrick's Day. And called her up. I told her I was in Las Vegas, and she was infuriated because she lives just an hour and a half south of here. She said, how can you come there, not come visit, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you know, if you're following my blog, you would know that I am in Las Vegas. And so we were talking about that a little bit and about the internet. And she's gotten interested in the internet recently, mostly to follow my kids, her great-grandchildren. And I pointed out to her, she was talking about coming up to Vegas, which she likes to do. I said, grandmother, you know, you can gamble online now. And there was
great recommendation to your 90-year-old grandmother.
Yeah, there was silence, and you know, just stunned silence. And finally, she said, well, let me know when I can get a scotch. And so anyway, I wanted to thank you all for being here at cocktail hour, and my grandmother somewhere is partaking on your behalf. So here we are in other places.
So we already talked about some of our clients, but our examples and experience will come from some of these, as well as working with different people in the industry and so forth. But again, we've got everything from consumer side, Microsoft, all across the board in terms of the different types of work we do. We do a lot with Ford, which is in an interesting position right now. We'll talk about some of the work we've done with Ford a little bit later, touch on some monetization that we've done with them and so forth. But obviously, social media crosses all channels and all industries. Everyone's trying to take advantage of it, and few are succeeding. And we're going to talk about our belief of what we think does make sense. So one last thing on Zoz, and we think this pertains overall to a good approach on the web. We like to say we live at the intersection of creativity and logic, right? So we know to be successful online, we must have amazing IA, we must have very solid design and good calls to action and everything else, but we need to be smart about it too. We need to measure it, we need to understand it, we need to know what's working, what's not working. We need to take advantage of things like A/B testing and multivariate testing to make sure we're balancing what makes sense, what is needed, what are customers looking for with the beautiful design and pictures. And we're going to talk a little bit about that measurement, which again comes back to the two of us speaking together as measurement and social media.
And you know, I hope also that we can convince you in the next hour that this measurement stuff is not boring or dry, but that it's actually a key design activity. And then in defining your goals and how you're going to measure those goals, part of what you're doing is making a strategic design choice that has ramifications throughout the rest of your design effort. So that's what I think is really fun and exciting about this stuff. I don't do math at all, don't understand it. But this is really, I think, some exciting groundbreaking stuff that's happening online, with a lot of people right now.
So we broke the presentation into a few different things. The first thing we're going to talk about is defining social media. Yes, 10 different people. What does social media mean? You're going to hear 10 different answers. So we're going to put a framework around that. Next, we're going to hit on one of our top points of the day, which is the idea in terms of measurement of social media. we need to focus on quality as well as quantity. So everyone typically focuses on quantity. We had this many visits or this many visitors or this many people signed up. And while those things are important to know and understand, the quality behind it is really where we see a lot of people being successful and really being able to quantify what's going on. We're going to share some case studies in there and share some what are true quality measurements versus quantity measurements. Next, we're going to talk about the idea of social media generating business intelligence. So the idea there is a lot of times when we measure marketing to improve the marketing. With social media, the benefit it brings back to the company and the organization is much more than that. We don't want to learn about how our social media is performing only to improve our social media. There's a number of areas there, and Ryan's going to dig into that. Next is talking about business intelligence and human intelligence, and I'm going to leave that one as we're going to spend a good amount of time on that. Then we've got a recap of starting with the basics of what's a good framework, a good methodology when you're beginning a new social media project to understand, to set up measurement, to define what success looks like, all of those things. We're going to walk you through that and leave you with some things going on after. And then we plan on having plenty of time for Q&A at the end, and ideally get people out of here a little bit before the end, depending on how many questions there are.
So the web, as we see it today, is a social medium. When we talk about social media, in a lot of ways, we're really just talking about the web. And one of the ways I describe this has to do with my 5-year-old daughter, who, when she was 2.5, picked up a banana, played telephone with it, just like we all did when we were kids, not so very long ago. But she picked it up and did something different with it. She said, "Call Grandma, sell," into the banana phone. And that's Web 2.0 to me. It's the same stuff, but there's been a really dramatic and fundamental shift in people's expectations about what they can do with it. And that's what's really different on the web today than 2 and 3 years ago. So when we talk about social media, what we're talking about is participation. It's about ways people use technology to interact with other people. And this is not really news, right? This is what the web started out as. The web started out as a collaborative medium for people to share information. What has changed is the threshold of entry, above all, is suddenly much, much lower than it was back in the HTML days. So this is a little bit of a take on sort of how the web has evolved over the last few years. The point I want to make about it, above all, is that where corporations got involved with the web was in really a broadcast era online. A lot has changed since then. We're no longer in the broadcast era, and because the web is a social medium, if you're making a website, you're making a social experience with a social context. And so, sure, you can design a website that's a brochureware or, e-com or whatever, but today, unlike 3 years ago, what you're doing is entering another facet into the social experience that surrounds your customer relationship. And that's different, and it's important, partly because our analytics and design practices evolved during that broadcast era. Before we really needed to manage websites in such a deep, ongoing way, and while we were still really focused on measurements that reflected the agenda of the times. So it's different now. So, I went back. The right button on here goes back, and the left one goes forward.
Turn it around.
So
that was too easy. Everyone in here thought the same thing.
But now the letter, anyway, we're upside down. So one of the things that we hear all the time and that we talk with people about a lot is, everybody understands now that social media is critically important. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do about it from a corporate perspective. And the easy entree tends to be to look at the tools that are available out there and to say, how do we figure that out? We want to kind of issue a reminder there that social media is not the tools through which sociality online is expressed. Social media is about people, relationships between people. It's about the things people create and share. And that's a different web than the web of HTML and hyperlinks. So today's web is much more human-centric. It's not site-centric anymore. And it's becoming more and more so every day. And this is a challenging environment for marketers to work in, because we find that interruptive marketing doesn't work in an environment where people are in control over what information they look at. You no longer have a captive audience. People are making choices about what stuff they want to surround themselves with and setting up relationships with those things so that they come to them. So how do you approach that challenge? Here's how not to. We see some good stuff here from Intuit. Remember Vanilla Ice? I am not one to put down vanilla. I love me some vanilla, but Intuit got him to like host a rap contest on YouTube to sell TurboTax. And they actually got some really funny submissions. It's kind of worth going and looking at them. But the campaign itself was a total failure in terms of what Intuit meant to do. So they did have a awesome tagline. Just because we understand tax code doesn't mean we can't bust mad flow, which you got to respect. So here's the thing that we need to realize is people don't want to connect with each other online. And you see the community tab on all the websites now, and people are going to come and they're like going to form relationships and like meet people and connect. People don't want to connect. We do a lot of surveys with our clients, what we call a true intent survey, where we're trying to understand what people are coming to a website for. And we ask them to rank activities like meet other customers, interact with other customers, connect with other customers. And the responses range from, of course not, why would I want to do that, to, ew. People don't want to connect with each other online, but that's not the whole story, because people do want value. And the key when thinking about social media is to understand where people can create value for each other and where you can engage customers to co-create value with you. This is from Peter Drucker. This is mentioned in one of the earlier talks. The purpose of the business is to create value for its customers, and the reward for doing so is profit. And so where we start to go with this is that if we think about how to do marketing online and in social media, what we're thinking about really is how do we create value, right? Because marketing is the business. It's as true for marketing as it is for business today. Interruptive stuff is over. Broadcast marketing is dead. So today we need to find new ways to create value, and we will be rewarded for doing that. So the people who do well are the people who create value, who do meaningful stuff. And when I say meaningful, I mean they create stuff that's important to people, stuff that matters. My colleague Bob Gilbreth at Bridge Interactive talks about the idea of marketing with meaning relative to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where if you're really reaching people at the top levels of that famous pyramid, when you're dealing with self-actualization, acceptance, expression, you're able to create stuff that matters, and it works better. Not only do you differentiate better in the highly competitive online environment that we see out there today, but you have more fun doing it, you make more money, and you leave your fingerprint on the world in a way that matters. And why shouldn't you do that? You should. So, how do we get there?
Go ahead. I'll take the.
Okay, you want to?
I'll take that. Thank you.
Cool.
So okay, he is right. He was holding it with the letters lined up. So I had to check that. The idea behind this is, again, we want to focus on the quality, not just the quantity. So again, when we talk about quantity, we talk about things such as we got 100,000 registered users. Are they ever going to come back? What does that mean? Does it matter? Were you offering to give 1 out of every 10 registered users free Zune? Well, of course you're going to get more people, but they're not really going to be engaged. Or, our users posted over 2,500 videos. Is anyone coming and looking at those, interacting with those, using it? Or is it 25 people each putting up 10 or 100 videos to get us there?
Are they coming there for a contest? We talk a lot about this kind of this fixation people have on like the amount of posts they have on their site, and how do you get people to participate? How do you get people to put stuff on the site? The thing to remember is that when people post content to a site in a user-generated environment, what they're doing is creating the potential for value. And it's the consumption of that content that actualizes that potential value. So it's not just about like getting a lot of stuff there. It's about like how are people using it? Is it good stuff? So we're interacting with clients a lot around social media, and my job is partly to boil the ocean on this and kind of try to say what social media is, and it's like all this stuff. But we have kind of distilled 4 different kind of families of social media activity that we're undertaking with clients. Monitoring and response is the first one. This is about looking out there and seeing what people are saying, going out and engaging with them. We talk a lot about a hub and spokes model, where you're able to develop content that's relevant to people who are interacting about your stuff out there, go out and engage with them, link back to the content you've developed in a way that adds value to that conversation. It isn't spammy. So where are your people? What are they saying? Social media products and services. And this is most often standalone social media sites. We did something for the MacBU called Art of Office that was a media sharing site where people were able, and we're going to show this in a case study later on, people were able to upload documents for use by other users. So this is a standalone social media effort. Integrated social tools is another area where we're redesigning whole websites, the .com sites for businesses, and integrating social experiences into that. It's something that a lot of people are doing right now. So the key there is to figure out, like, how do you engage people in ways that creates value? Throwing up a forum is almost never the right thing to do. And intranet is the last kind of frontier that we're working on in social media. Tremendous amount of activity. Microsoft's doing amazing stuff with collaborative technology on MS Web. So how does this work in practice? I'm going to show you a few examples of social media efforts, some of which we did for our clients and others that were done by other people and we just admire. This is American Express, not one of our clients. You familiar with the Members Project?
How many people have seen this?
A few. So it's a great site. It's built on Salesforce's Ideas platform. The basic thing is that you kind of buy into this project. In the first version of it, I think you actually put in $1. And they collected $1 million from people participating in this, and then engaged them in a collective intelligence exercise to figure out how to donate that money to support causes. And so people were able to come to this site and propose a project and ask for funding, and then the community collectively decides how to distribute that money that's available for funding. So really neat campaign. And we're going to talk a little bit about the measurement for this and how it might work.
So before we jump into the measurement view, just want to point out on the bottom there, they outline how we got here. 1,190 projects, 6,500 comments, 213,000 nominations. They're showing some of it. The key with this is how do we define what success is? So we're going to talk about each of these, then we're going to talk about kind of the quantity and quality visits. So of course, or quantity and quality measurements. Of course, we want to know how many people came to the site. How many members, how many people did that, how many number of projects were submitted and so forth. All of those are important, but when we step back and really look at it is how many active members do we have? How many people are really coming back and engaging in this more than once? Now, the active number percentage can simply be what they determine, what they decide is active. So we're looking at all of these as, what are some of the measurements they could be looking at? Another quality measurement is, again, that average rate of participation. So they have a lot of people coming in and looking at just that main page and then bailing out, or people really getting engaged, understanding it, so forth. Positive offsite blogging reviews, return visitor percentage. There's a number of different things they can look at. So what we typically see is a lot of people are just looking at the things over on the left, which, again, don't want to say those aren't important, but we need to make sure we're balancing those with some of the other deeper things on the right and ultimately looking to what it means to their business. In some future examples, we'll talk about some attitudinal measurements as well of things in terms of understanding the impact on the visitors, how they feel about the brand, and so forth.
This is one of our clients, Helio. They were recently acquired by Virgin? Virgin. They're a small mobile company. Their thing was like, don't call it a phone, it's a mobile device. They were really trying to make a play for sort of the mobile social space relatively early on. And one of the things that they did that I thought was pretty cool is they integrated this view of Google Maps with the contacts list inside your phone. So that you're able to see, the phone has GPS. You can see where your folks are. So they're taking the IM, metaphor of presence and extending it onto this map in a mobile context in a way that is pretty interesting and useful. And they take it a step further by showing status based on color. So you see not only presence, but also status superimposed on location in a mobile device. So you've got this different kind of access to your contacts as you walk around.
And again, we're seeing this now with a lot more devices. But the idea, when this first came out, it was one of the first ones. They were really trying to get their customers to engage with each other and so forth. When we look at this, again, some of the quantity measurements could be things like MyBeacon activations, which was the technology called. Learn about MyBeacon, how many people are coming and looking at that. Those are all important things. It's great if we get a bunch of activations. Then if no one uses it, we had proof through surveys and so forth that when people really started to use this, their chance of churning went way down. So the idea is, great, we can get people to sign up for it. It didn't cost anything more. They didn't use it. There wasn't much benefit to it. We go over to quality. It's active MyBeacon users. So how many people are people really getting in and actively using this? 5 times a month or more is the example. Average number of buddies per active user. So those people that are active, do they have 3 buddies, 10 buddies, 15? Is it growing? Is it expanding? And percent of regular users versus heavy users. So again, understanding how are they engaging with this aspect.
This is another client of ours, REI, added ratings and reviews to their product catalog online about, I guess it was 8 months or so ago now. And on the next slide, you'll see like just an amazing amount of participation on this. But what's most interesting about it is not that people came to their site and rated their products, but that they have like 60 and 100 and 300 reviews on their products, on their tents. Like, how much can you say about a tent? They did some smart stuff to manage all that volume, with affinity ratings, and they're looking at like multi-dimensional rating system where you're looking at the kinds of different uses people have for the products, different separate ratings of different aspects of the products and so on. But if you look at some of these reviews, what you see is this amazingly pent-up desire to tell adventure stories, because people are writing long reviews about tents, and they're telling all about the time they were there and it rained and the bugs got in and all this stuff. And there's this amazing amount of sharing going on. So clearly in the REI community, the product review was sort of the tool that exposed this pent-up desire to share and to tell stories.
So this is, you can't go past this without talking about, obviously, the great impact this has on search in terms of all of this getting viewed by the different search engines out there and what it can do in terms of driving traffic back. That's a different topic. Again, we look at quantity versus quality. So we could just look at number of reviews submitted. And again, that is good to know. Some of the other things, percent of reviews that are helpful, 75% plus. We've got the, was this review helpful, yes or no down here? Pretty standard. That can be a big indication to understand. We can look at how many people are actually driving when they when they look at a review, are they going to purchase? Review visits per product visit. Are people really getting in and engaging with these? In this case, we found they were. Percent of reviewers that are heavily engaged. We have a group of really dedicated people from REI that every single product, they buy a new product every couple weeks at REI, and then 2 weeks later they go in and review it. Are those people really, really engaged? And then, again, as I mentioned, the conversion rate based on reviews. So what are these reviews doing for people? Yes?
Sorry, I know it's not question time.
That's okay.
I was wondering when you mentioned that that people bought it and then 2 weeks later they're reviewing it. Mm-hmm. How would you know that? Is it because they bought online and then you knew, or is it because they bought in the store and the database?
Yeah, so the question is, if someone bought online, if someone bought and then reviewed 2 weeks later, how would we know? A few ways. One is obviously if everything's within the site, when they check out, they log in, and when they submit, they log in. So that would be one way. In other cases, with someone like Ford, where people look online and do a lot of research and maybe request a price quote or something else and then buy from their local dealership, we can do a few things. We can either do surveys and find out more about, okay, when did you buy this product, or did you use the web? In some cases, even with automotive, we can actually match back from DMV records to say Ryan Turner requested a price quote, a build and price for the new F-150 or Mustang car.
Thank you.
And 2 weeks later, he bought one, and we can match that actually through DMV records, which I think is, when I first found that out, I was kind of freaked out. But you can do those things. But sometimes with a lot of these that we talk about, it's not the golden ticket to match everything up. We're going to talk about monetization models in a few minutes, which assign dollar values to different site behaviors, try to quantify them in a few different ways. And in doing that, sometimes we need to make educated assumptions. We can survey, talk to customers, talk to prospects, do those matchbacks if we can, to get as close as we can to understand it. Good question, though.
REI's got kind of an exceptional capability in that area because since they're a membership-based organization, they have an unusual ability to track their customers' behavior on an individual basis, from like participation in trips and outings, rental history, in-store purchases, online behavior. And so they're kind of unusual in that way. But that's one of the things that we're starting to see more and more as people create communities for customers where they do the action of registering and creating an account. We've got a more and more finely tuned sense of what people are doing on an individual basis. And there's a lot you can do with that kind of information. This is our Mactopia client. The forums on Mactopia were new. I think we launched this can't remember now. It was maybe at the beginning of last year. But we essentially took a support activity that had been going on with the MVPs, primarily on Usenet, and integrated it with the Mactopia site to bolster the post-sales technical support activity on that site. So Microsoft is creating editorially focused content that we're presenting as sort of like the authoritative stuff, and then there's also a community, forum area for peer-to-peer support. To get those fast answers to questions not answered by the editorial content. The MVPs here are a huge presence, and Microsoft's MVP community is just an extraordinary resource to actually have third-party subject matter experts who are willing to invest kind of unhuman amounts of time, like providing support for customers. It's an amazing opportunity. So we did our best to kind of provide a view of that face here.
So we look at, again, the quantity and quality. You're going to see visits show up here a lot because that's something that people automatically glom onto is okay, this is how many people we had come to the site, or how many pages they digested. More pages is not always better. We need to remember. So total MVP activity, which Ryan talked about. Total comment prints in terms of people going in and printing things out to get tips. Percent rating the experience helpful again. So it's about how is this helping people? How are people engaging with it? How are people gaining information from it?
Yeah, and a typical quality measure here in support forums is also, ratio of questions to answers.
Absolutely. I think it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You get what you measure. And so if your aspirational goal-setting effort and the measurement that flows from that is focused on short-term, quantity-focused metrics, you are likely to shoot yourself in the foot in terms of creating long-term value overall. Whereas, if you look at it the other way and focus on creating value, very likely you're going to be able to drive quantity from that. So obviously, you have to have awareness. Obviously, demand gen is critical. You can't ignore that stuff, and we wouldn't say, take it to such an extreme of don't pay any attention to that. But we really want to make the key KPIs, the key performance indicators, all about creating value and meaning.
Yeah, so again, we want to be clear, not saying that the quantity metrics we're showing don't matter. What we're saying is to date, they've gotten way too much attention in the equation. But we could not credibly stand up here and say you shouldn't worry about the number of people that come to your site.
You could say that credibly.
So, Ryan, Art of Office.
Yeah, this is the Art of Office site I mentioned earlier. This was kind of a twofold effort. On the one hand, we wanted to challenge the brand perception of the Mac Office products as being strictly for productivity use. We wanted to kind of frame them also as tools for creative expression. And so, we commissioned some work that you see kind of featured in the top half of this screen from, semi-well-known artists and got some really, really cool contributions from them. And then we also created a user-generated document library that people can upload their stuff, show it off, find good stuff, download and reuse documents. Everything's licensed under Creative Commons here. And so the thing that I really like about that effort is that it's creating value that's very much related to the product itself, the core offering of the business. So when you buy a Mac Office, you also get access to this library of documents that you can take and reuse and get more out of the product. So it's a great example, I think, of customers co-creating value around the product.
I think that one of the interesting things here is you can see they've got as Ryan said, that we don't want it to be all about productivity for this. We've got today's most useful documents on the left and today's most artistic documents on the right. So still playing that balance, still playing the benefits, but showing it. So again, when we look at this, visits, page views, just random comments, all good to know stuff. This is where we're getting into more of the survey things. And this is about giving people what they want, which is Ryan's point early on. If we have a bunch of people submitting great templates and no one using them, we're going to be missing out. If we've got a bunch of people coming in to want to see great templates, but there's none there, we're going to miss out as well. So looking at survey, do people have an expanded view of MS Office capabilities? Was the content helpful? What was the percentage of people downloading those templates and using them? So we can start to get in much deeper to really understand how is this helpful? How is this beneficial? That top one, the idea of is this expanding the view of MS Office capabilities is a key one. And really that's what they're trying to do on this site. When you define the goal and then work towards it, these are the things. That number of visits isn't going to tell us that answer. So if our number one mission is to do that, we're only looking at visits or comments, we're nowhere near understanding the impact.
This is done by Chevron Texaco. It's called willyoujoinus.com, and this has been around for about 3.5 or 4 years, and is still live. The initial launch of this site was a total failure. They created a forum for people to discuss issues around alternative energy. So obviously here, Chevron Texaco is also tackling a brand challenge with this activity, right? They're saying, you come join us as we explore the possibilities for alternative energy and help us understand what the direction we need to take and where we need to go. The thing that works really, really well in the current version of this site, and the reason it's been a huge success, is that they took that kind of failure on the wide open forum to heart, and they said, how do we create the right kind of affordance for the sort of conversation we want to have happening on this site? And so they commissioned experts in really kind of technical fields related to alternative energy and got them to post alternative arguments around an issue, to provide information about emerging developments in the alternative technologies, and then use that as touchstone content to frame discussions by users. And as a result, what they've got going now is an amazingly high quality of discussion where you read through some of these threads and I don't understand any of it because it's people who are really serious experts coming and discussing this in this branded venue for Chevron Texaco. And you'll notice the brand is relatively understated here, right? That's part of what makes this work. But this isn't a site where people come and everyone contributes and everyone participates. This is a site where experts come to discuss. But how many non-experts are coming and looking at this site and learning something from it?
So again, the same type of thing. The raw comment counts and visits are good to know, but the quality measurements are more of presented votes over and under 100 words. So people vote in on things. How are people just saying yes or just one or two sentences, or are people really putting thought into it? Percent of recommended comments selected. So that's, again, looking at what people are seeing, what people are saying, and what is Chevron taking. And then the rate of the full page scrolls. And this is an interesting one. Sorry about that. This is an interesting one. Some of this content can get pretty unwieldy, and we all know that can turn a lot of people off. We can look in there and understand, are people moving through that? If it's videos, are people watching all the way through the videos? Now, that doesn't mean they read everything. That doesn't mean it was a positive experience, but it helps play into the role of understanding that.
So another key point on that one is we heard a little bit about quality algorithms in the keynote earlier on, is that in user-generated content systems in general, a high percentage of the content, like most of it, really sucks. Or you could say it's of interest primarily to its creator. There's not a lot of wheat in all that chaff. So it's critical not only to be able to understand what's the overall quality of the content on your site, but to be able to identify the content that's good and bring it forward in your information architecture. Because the single biggest influencer of people's behavior online is the behavior of the people around them. And so if you're able to identify exemplary content, bring it forward and surface it on the site, you're likely to get a lot more of that kind of stuff. So here's how we talk in this space. IdeaStorm, familiar with this one? This is a great site, also been around for a long time. Also built a Like Members project on Salesforce's platform. It's basically an activity where customers come to the site and give Dell ideas for what they want out of their products. And then people vote on the ideas. The best ones rise to the top. And then the thing that really works here is that Dell responds to all those ideas that emerge out of the top. And some they implement, others they don't. But if they don't, they always explain exactly why. And so what they've been able to do here is engage customers in this sense of ownership around the products, to be able to say, we care what you want. We know that we don't have all the good ideas. Come here and tell us, and we'll give you an honest response.
One interesting thing on this site, as Ryan said, they keep track of what ones they implement and what they don't. We don't have it in this screenshot, but if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a great use and gets a lot of positive feedback. But over on the right, on the main site when you go into it, over on the right, they've got a list of ideas that were implemented, ideas that they're working on implementing, ideas they're considering, and they have a whole hierarchy. It's pretty interesting where, as a consumer, when you go and you can look at that and kind of see, hey, some of these have really made it through, and some of them, they are listening to what people are saying. So they do a good job of closing the loop on that. Same things we're looking at. The number of ideas, pure ideas submitted, is not the big win out of this. We want to know, how many people are coming back and continually voting. By voting, they get moved up and down a ranking based on that. What number of customer ideas are implemented? So which ones actually get put to work? Number of ideas with 20,000 plus votes. Something that is really an idea that people are getting behind or interested in, like a battery that doesn't burn up. The percent of, sorry, had to do that. Big fan of Dell. Percent of Dell status updates. So the number of those where Dell's coming back. It's interesting, within some of the comments, even if there's an initial idea with 5 or 10 comments in there, they will put in there and say, the Dell status on this issue is X, and they'll write a little status on it. We're testing this in a few of our products, whatever it may be. and then the number of active members. So again, we're not saying just the number of members, number of active members, and that can be defined as however it makes sense for your business. But it's really starting to look at the specific activity that people are doing.
So this is a Blend Text, Will It Blend viral video on YouTube. How many have seen this? Everybody's seen it. Good. It's hilarious, right? You get this guy out there, and he blends the iPhone and reduces it to dust. Now, think about this viral campaign, which is a tremendous success. 6.5 million views on this now, which is a lot. What is it about this thing that works so well where Intuit's TurboTax wrap thing totally failed? Anybody? Exactly. It's hilarious to watch them take this, this iPhone that's sort of object of desire and blend it to dust. But you also can't help notice, like, damn, that is a blender. Like, look at that iPhone, I mean, when I first saw it, I clicked over to the Blend Text site because I was really curious, like, how much it costs to have a blender that can do something like that. So it communicates the core value of the product. And this is the thing with viral is you get, the thing with viral is you can, if you're successful, which is, most often a shot in the dark, you can get a huge spike in traffic that will then immediately die off. But the thing about that traffic is that it's typically very low quality traffic. So making your viral campaigns communicate the core value of the product is a way to increase the quality of your viral traffic.
And we've all heard of, I get a new startup company gets featured on TechCrunch and just goes through the roof. Their traffic just spikes, and literally 3 days later, it's back down to where it was. It quadruples or goes up tenfold at times. The interesting thing on this is that we've been talking about a lot of sites that maybe the company controls, or it's on their domain with the REI examples and a few of the others, the Mactopia and so forth. This is more out there, obviously, on YouTube. And now they've got a bunch of videos up there, and they've got a Blend Tech channel. The iPhone is still the most popular one. But when we look at this, the number of ratings, people going in or down below it says there are 13,000 ratings. Number of ratings matters a little less. In this case, views would be, how many people are really watching these videos is more relevant. Click-throughs to Blend Tech site. You can link directly through. We don't have the link showing on here. You can link directly through to that. Then you could, of course, track that and see, well, what percentage of those people buy? To Ryan's point, he just jumped over to say, I have no idea. Is this $800? Does it cost that much to get a great blender like this, or is it $50? You might not buy right then either way, but the idea is getting people over, and then we can track them over time whether they convert or not.
And it's not 50.
What was that?
And it's not 50.
It's not 50, okay. The active subscriptions, that's people saying, I want to know when Blend Tech, blends up the next technology device that's brand new. Or people that have favored it based on views, people that really get excited about it. And again, a lot of these that we're showing you, we're trying to make the point between quantity and quality. A lot of these could be, you could see some of the same ones on a number of these different examples. What we're really focusing in on is let's understand what is the goal of the site. What are we trying to get people to do through our social media efforts? And then how can we measure how we're doing based on that?
So the basics are the same for measuring social media as they are for measuring any kind of website. We're going to talk a little bit about what the sort of fundamentals are here, and then talk a little bit about how social media differs in process.
So this is, we talk about a lot of different tools, and we talk about social media, being this buzzword, but really it's about connecting with our customers and giving them what they want and so forth. And it's been going on for really a long time in that view. This is a view that we have of just sites in general, of building an effective site or a campaign or whatever it may be. First thing we've got to do is define the business goals. What are we trying to do? And we shared that Mactopia example, the Art of Office example of really getting people in and to see the fun side of it, and it's more than just maybe the more conservative, practical uses. We want to understand, how can we get the data about those goals. So looking at if we build the social media site or leverage this social media experience, here's what we want to do. Here's how we're going to understand what works. Once it's out there, we go in and analyze it, and then we take advantage of optimizing it and tuning it and improving it. Now, this is an area where social media is really interesting, and we'll touch on it again in a few minutes, but it's not just put it up there and let it run and see what it does. How can we continually improve it? How can we better integrate it? How can we leverage when that traffic, if it's external to the site, how can we leverage it when that traffic does come back over to the site? But it also allows us to learn and improve our business. So when Dell looks at that site and looks at the traffic on that site and sees what's working, they're looking to see how they can improve that site. But the real win for them is taking all their great customer ideas, giving those people a place to talk about it, and then put those to work to improve their products and ultimately improve their relationships with their clients. So as we said, there's all sorts of tools out there. Measure chatter, sentiment, streamline the effort of engaging with customers. Now, some of these are free. Some of them are quite expensive. Here's a small sampling. We would need to update this almost daily to get it completely current. But you'll see there's all sorts of pockets of where to get data and understand what's working and what's not. We looked at a few minutes ago of just even using some of the things on YouTube to see number of subscribers and different things that we can see. Ryan, anything to add on this one?
No, that's good. So everyone should be doing this. You should know what people are talking about around your brand, your service, your product in every venue where they're talking about it. And we say this to a lot of clients. It's like you got to be monitoring. You got to know what's going on out there. I think that most people also need to be doing that. We're sort of in the era of the ego feed. Jason Burby has a robust ego feed that includes many tools. I'll tell you a little bit about how that works. And I think it's really important to know, too, that this doesn't take a massive budget to buy a monitoring tool. The massive budget monitoring tools are great, and they're worth it. But if you don't have that, you can take a free approach. And on the next slide, you can see the idea here is that if you understand sort of where people are talking about you, if you kind of have a sense of what stuff is out there, you can identify the right tools to monitor those in a free way as best you can. Most of these tools are based on RSS, and so to some extent you're limited to monitoring sources that broadcast RSS of their content. It's not entirely true. All the major search engines include a way to, in advanced search, to configure a pretty finely tuned search and then subscribe to it on an ongoing basis. So you can do that to cast kind of a broader net. And then there are lots of tools also for compiling all those sources into a single feed and then monitoring them in yet another tool. So it's a little bit of a hack. It takes kind of a lot of setup. But once you kind of get this going and get in a rhythm of monitoring it pretty easily, it's not that big a deal, and it's free. And if you can show the value of doing this kind of activity, and bring back some knowledge, then you can justify the budget to get the really robust tool that'll streamline the process for you. And here's the thing that's so important about that and this is different in social media. And when we talk about what's different in social media and monitoring that and measuring it compared to monitoring and measuring sites from the broadcast era, is that because social media is a two-way channel, you don't just get to broadcast your message and then see how people behave. You get to hear them and understand what they're saying. And so you can actually generate true business intelligence, enterprise-level business intelligence. It's not just about measuring your marketing to understand how effective your marketing is, but measuring your marketing to understand what the business needs to know. So it's a difference that is just tremendously important. So when you kind of dive into this, it's critical to understand that you're not just looking out there and seeing what people click on online. There are many different dimensions that you need to be paying attention, including attitudinal, behavioral, transactional data, what kind of stuff are people buying, what are they saying about what they bought, social media data, what are people saying in the different environments where they participate, competitive data, what are your competitors doing, what are people saying about them, and in particular, what are the people saying when they're comparing you to them. So there are lots of sources, and integrating them is crucial. So we don't just configure tools and then bring in data. We're also going out and actively engaging with customers in offline environments. So we're going out to brick and mortar retail environments to understand what customers are doing, for clients in that kind of environment, how they're receiving the product information, what kind of stuff they're looking at, and how that experience affects their purchase process. And we're bringing people into the usability lab, watching them interact with the web, and not just with your website, but with the whole web experience that surrounds your brand, and get a much more nuanced sense of sort of what its effect is and how it all works.
And to state the obvious to this group is, when we look at the web channel in general, and we look at the websites that all of us manage and work on, we know there's more outside of the site, and there's more influences in terms of brick and mortar and paid media out there, everything out there. With social media, it's even more important to really understand that, of understanding what your customers are saying about your products to you, to others elsewhere. So really making sure that when we look at social media, we're understanding the impact across the board, not just within the realm that you control.
So go out, get all these different sources, compile them, and think carefully about how to integrate the different bits of information that you're able to gather. If you survey people on brand perception on their entry into a social experience that you create, you can survey a second group on exit to understand the difference in their brand perception between when they engaged and then when they left. And so those kinds of coordinated approaches are really valuable. So here's the other thing. Who here lacks enough data? Nobody, right? Maybe some. It's really rare to really kind of lack data. The key is to be able to extract meaning from the data. And that's where the human intelligence behind the measurement program is so critical, and especially in social media where you're really trying to listen and understand sentiment and understand like what emerging issues are hot today, and understand how to operationalize that, which is probably the biggest challenge, and take action against what you learn. So a great place to start is a social media inventory. And when we do this, there are several dimensions to it. Go to the next slide and I'll talk about what some of them are. When you inventory your social media environment, your customer ecosystem online, you're looking at the stuff you have, which you may or may not know all of it, right? Because everybody's got rogue bloggers and people with servers under their desks, doing their pet project. What are all the ad hoc and sanctioned efforts to create homegrown stuff going on within your business? And then what's going on in totally other separate spaces? What are your competitors doing? Who are the influencers in your space? What advocates do you have out there? What detractors? What's the ROI on a converted detractor? I wonder. Hard to measure, but really important, right? So there's lots of different places to look and sort of dimensions of data to gather. When you compile that into a single picture, it gives you a really good sense of like which tools do we need to monitor what's going on in different venues. Do we need to be paying attention to a tag on YouTube, or is that not important? Do we need to engage with this blogger? How influential are they? So here's another example of how that can look. There are lots of ways to visualize it. We'll do it as a big poster with an accompanying set of annotations, but the important thing is to just kind of compile the list.
So we talk about, again, measuring success of social media and in terms of understanding the value. And I mentioned the idea of monetization before. The idea of monetization is assigning dollar values to different behaviors. So what is it worth for us to get someone, as Ryan just said, to get one of those detractors to support your brand? Or what is it worth to get someone to come in and view that Blendtec video? It's not worth $100. It's not worth the equivalent of one sale, but it's probably worth more than a penny, or close to a penny. So the idea is, how can we begin to quantify this stuff and figure out what makes sense? And sometimes people aren't comfortable of getting right to the point of assigning a dollar value to it. The Ford example I gave earlier, we know there's 13 behaviors on their site that when people do it, it leads to a purchase for X% of those people. So we've been able to do the math backwards and say every person that does a build and price of a vehicle, that is worth X number of dollars to Ford. So let's look at a few of these. So we've got these. One of the ideas we talk about, and I'm going to jump away from monetization and then come back, is tracking performance over time. So you can see up on the right, we're tracking things for a 6-month period. We're breaking out the active participants from the content consumption, looking at seeing what that is, how is it growing, how is it changing, but having that one view of truth into what's going on the site. So take any of those examples we gave of the quantity and the quality. Think about the social media sites that your companies generate, support, whatever it may be. Then figure out how can we tell that one consistent story about what's working and what's not on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis. Now, when we get down to the monetization side of it, here's an example. We had X number of people come in and view the site. This many people watched the video. That many led to a purchase. It's the value of the purchase. So we can start to get down and figure out, what is the likelihood of someone to buy? Or, again, converting and changing people and getting them excited about the product so their likelihood goes up. What's the value of that? And quantify it to a dollar range. But often in social media, that's really hard. That's really difficult for people to get to. Now, if we could take any social media site, if we could take that Dell site and break it down and say, okay, here's the different things people can do, and this one's worth 52 cents, and that one's worth 2 cents, and that one's worth 2,000. We could begin to quantify the value of that channel. Difficult to do right off the gate for a lot of companies, especially in the social media realm. Another thing we'll do is use what we call tokens. So it's basically a relative measurement. So how valuable is one behavior compared to another behavior? What this does, the reason we want to do this is allows us to quantify the value overall and then determine areas where we want to focus. So in this case, the third from the bottom is search for a local community member. For whatever reason, if someone does that, we believe it's worth a 6, which is twice as much as the top one of viewing schedule activities. So the idea is we're starting to stack rank the value of different behaviors to us and to our customers across social media, so we can measure it for different time periods and months.
And crucially, so we can prioritize among the different opportunities to optimize and improve the site experience.
Mm-hmm. And an example of that is people buying paid media for a site, for a social media site, or very heavy social media site. Is how should you know how much you should pay if you can't quantify the value of that to your business? So we need to have a way of saying if we're paying, whether it's a traditional search term or banner, whatever it may be, but if we're paying to get people there, what's it worth to us in terms of what they do? Without going through a monetization exercise and really understanding and having those relative views, it's tough to get there. But monetization is only part of what we're talking about here.
So this is the website of our client now. They're a startup based down in Portland. Up in Portland. They're a really cool company. People came from Nike, and they started this business really to kind of prove that sustainable business was possible to do. And so they're rigorous about their sourcing and their processes, and super environmentally friendly, socially conscious company. Really cool. So
one thing on that, amazing clothes. The coolest thing about them, you'd go into one of their stores or online and you'd check out, and they'd say X% of your purchase goes towards a charity. Which one do you want? And you could literally pick one of like 5 charities that they supported. Great products, amazing offering, amazing business plan, horrific timing in trying to get funding.
Yep. So that giving piece is interesting to me, partly because it's the opposite of what the members project is, right? Where you've got a collective activity to decide who to fund. Here it's like the emphasis is on individual choice, like my dollar goes where. And so it's a different approach. It's interesting. So, the economy, the economy last year now was unable to secure their next round of funding and had to fold. And so they posted about this on their blog, which had a pretty rabid following because they were really posting about the challenges of trying to run a business sustainably. And there was an outpouring of grief that now was going to have to close its doors. That story got picked up by better-known blogs. This one, Tree Hugger, and as a result of this, Horny Toad is a like-minded company similar to Now, became aware of Now's plight and decided to acquire them. And so they bought them and essentially saved the business, and Now is still going. So
recap on that:
Yeah.
Tree Hugger, Now, Horny Toad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got
Let's
it.
make sure.
And so we talk about ROI, we talk about monetization. Monetization is critical. It is possible to show ROI. You should and must work on that. But you also need to bear in mind that simply getting involved can yield unexpected results. So it's worth it, even if you can't necessarily show it today.
So we wanted, as Ryan and I were putting this together, we wanted to talk about, where do we want to give people some information, and hopefully the quantity and quality and the balance there, and the idea of using the data and the human intelligence. Hopefully all of that stuff has made sense. But we also wanted to give some ideas. Okay, where do you start with structuring a good social media program?
So this is another version of our kind of wheel process. And we say that the social media process is just a little bit different than the traditional analytics process. This is some of how that comes to forefront. Again, the key thing is start with goals. As I said earlier, you should really regard this goal definition as a design activity. This is an activity where you state what it is you're going to accomplish in the world, and the rest of the design process really flows from that. So it's critical. So then the inventory. Take a look and understand what's the full ecosystem, what's the environment your customers are interacting with your brand, product, or service. Define how you're going to measure all those bits and pieces. Build the value index so you've got a single core metric to understand how much value is being created. Monetize behaviors so you can show ROI and continue to get funded. Build out the reports so you can show the data off. Understand which behaviors you want to focus on improving. Optimize the site. And this is the thing. Taking action is the hardest part. And the biggest barrier, the biggest hurdle that our clients face in getting involved in social media is operational more than it is conceptual. You can kind of figure out ways to get involved and to do good stuff. But it's very hard to sustain the ongoing effort required to do it successfully. And so that's the key piece here, is to continually take action on what you learn.
So in summary, I want to focus measurements on quality. Yes, quantity as well, but quality, balance that out. Create meaningful experience, adding value. Build a picture of your social media ecosystem. Build the right reporting system. Operationalize, it's easy for me to say, Ryan? Operationalize, I deserve that, your business intelligence, and then cultivate human intelligence. So one question, and then we're going to wrap up. How many people have been involved in a social media project in some capacity in the last year? Okay, which is why many of you are here. Keep those hands up. So the people that were, how many of them had specific goals with measurements that you would say would fall more in the quality versus the quantity side of things? Okay, so good. Some hands stayed up. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people getting more sophisticated about this, more aggressive about it. And as Ryan said, setting those goals up front, really then mapping to those is what's important, where it's at, and then understanding the value in this. We've got a free giveaway we're giving out. It's a little application you can download to your desktop. It allows you to monitor or understand the lift in terms of making changes to your business. So if we can increase our conversion rate by 2%, what does that mean to our business? You can plug it in, you can look at it. So if anyone wants one of those, just write a calculator on the back of your business card, give it to Ryan and I as we wrap up, and we promise you we will only email you that and anything else. And if you do get something else from us, you can spam our email address on every single sign up that you want going forward.
We won't do that to you.
So with that, we thank you very much for attending. We'll open it up for questions, and
we also have a few copies of Jason's book to give away. Our colleague Jen, sitting kind of in the middle of the room there, can hand out a handful of those.
Jen knows a ton on the projects that we showed, especially within Microsoft. So if anyone has any questions, please talk to Jen. So it looks like we've got first question. Again, we're going to give these out to people who ask.
Yeah, feel free to take
people
off
can
if you're
line
done
up. But go ahead.
Hi. My question's about building social media experiences versus trying to kind of inject your brand into existing networks.
Yep.
And as an example, I'd rather upload my photos and share them and discuss photography on a site like Flickr than go to a Nikon Coolpix site that features Ashton Kutcher for some reason and upload them there and do it. And it seems like the challenges are the kind of perceived shelf life of the experience and the opportunity to be able to actually, have a big engaging